All right. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. This is Monday Sprint Planning. This is October 31st, 2022. And I'm so excited to have you on and watching this live because today and this week's topic, I think, is so important. It's important because we're in the process of finishing 2022 strong in our respective business. And it's important because it sets us up for success over the next 60 days to kick off the new year 2023 with momentum. And the big question we're posing today, and the question I want you to be asking yourself is, what do you practice? What do you practice? That is a big question that I think each one of us should take a moment and ask ourselves, what do we practice? If you're on here live and going to join us for the conversation on the Zoom, go on ahead and throw down some of the things that you practice in the chat. I'm going to give you an example of the definition of practice is the actual application or use of an idea, a belief, a method, as opposed to just the theory of that idea, right? It's the customary or habitual or expected procedure of the way that you do things. As a verb, you perform an action or an activity of an exercise or a skill. You do it repeatedly, you do it regularly, and you do it in order to improve or maintain some level of proficiency in that area of focus. So what do you practice? What do you carry out or what do you perform? What type of regular activities do you habitually do in order to either sustain or move forward in some progress? Guys, this is the big question that I want us to be asking ourselves as we round out this year and as we go into every week's sprint planning, because some aspect of your weekly planning should be focused on carving out time, prioritizing time to practice. And guess what? If we do things regularly, when we do them, we're practicing to improve them, right? So it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to practice making follow-up phone calls, just role playing with a friend. You know what I mean? It can be, I can practice making follow-up phone calls by making follow-up phone calls. And part of the benefit of practice is to reflect back on those practices and those games and see how we performed, and then course correct and adjust so that we improve as we move forward. So I want to change our perspectives a little bit, right? Have you ever heard that term, act as if? Act as if, right? Act as if you are already where you want to be, right? Act as if you're already there. When you close your eyes and in your mind's eye, you see what you're working towards. If you acted as if you were already there, then you would already be putting into practice all of the knowledge, skills, and habits that future you would be doing on a daily basis. And the reality is that's exactly what it takes to get to that future location, is you just start implementing and putting into practice those things. So have you ever heard that phrase like, what would Jesus do, right? Or, hey, what would Shelly do? What would Brenda do? What would Greg do? What would ER do? What would Guy do if he was encountering the situation? And not the now you, right? The future you. What would they do? I was reading an article about a woman who had lost a massive amount of weight, right? She had struggled with her weight for a long time. She was always going on these fad diets. And then all of a sudden she had a mental shift. And she started saying, what would a healthy person do? In every single choice throughout the day that she made. And she didn't think about it a week at a time. She didn't even think about it a day at a time. She thought about it one choice at a time, because that's what we do. We live every single day just making choices, guys. Think about that. And if we have the power to choose, then the choices we make can impact our day and, in essence, our future. So she went around and just spent the entire day and the next day and the next day. And after a period of almost 6 months of daily practice of what would a healthy person do, she found herself a healthy person. She had lost all of this weight. She had changed her eating habits. She had changed her exercise habits. She had changed her sleeping habits. She had changed all of these daily practices just by asking herself every time she went to make a decision, almost like that conscience sitting on your shoulder. What would XYZ do? And then it's your choice if you want to follow through with that advice or not, guys. That's the power to choose. And sometimes, all too often, I've been caught in this trap myself. We don't always follow our own advice, right? We make that mistake. And the reality is it's okay. We're going to fail every now and then. The big thing is do we get up and reset and start going down the journey again? So think about that perspective. What do you practice? And what would the future you do when they're making the daily choices? Right now, you've already made the right choice because you're watching this or you're joining this live, and you made a conscious decision to schedule this into your schedule, to prioritize this into your time, to show up to this call or to watch this video if it was shared with you. And the next choice you have is to lean into what we're talking about. If you're watching this on the live stream on YouTube, maybe you're thinking about the choice to join the conversation, to actually get on the Zoom link. And when we close down the live feed of this little sprint planning monologue here and go into general shuffle network discussion to where we improve, that you're going to start participating in that. Now, I want to come back to practice. And as many of you know, Guy, my partner, and I are ex-athletes. So practice means a big thing to us. It's that thing that we did just so often throughout the first part of our life that the success was an inevitability, right? And we've talked about Zig Ziglar's Born to Win, and we talk about mindset of a champion. We talked about 12-week year as we finish up the year. And I'm always talking about this self-improvement and the knowledge we fill ourselves with and how we want to be applying that knowledge. And the daily practice is so critical to all of this, right? We have to acquire the right knowledge and the right skills, and then we have to put that into practice. So what do you practice, and what do you want to start practicing? And are you prepared to put that into practice on a daily basis? Again, when I speak about these things from the LFI perspective, we're thinking about it in all spokes of the wheel of life. And if you're truly looking for holistic success, not just success in your business or your primary business focus or whatever venture or opportunity you're working on, yes, you want success there, but in the holistic approach of success in all areas of your life. What do you practice daily for your spirituality or for your own self-care or for your family or for your career or your finances or your health? After we go into the closed table discussion, I'm going to bring up what we've been talking about last week, which was Brenda is practicing bike riding, right? And she's posted not just a mile, you know what I mean? Not just 5 miles, 10 miles. We're in excess of 20 miles now. That's part of practice, guys. That's the truest form of practice and getting out there. And if you just maintain and stick with that, it's an inevitability that the next time you ride 20 miles, it's going to be a little easier than the last time. And the next time again, and the next time again. And then eventually you look up and you're riding 25 or 30 or 35 or 40 or 45 or 50, and it's part of an overall progression. And you may have set the goal at the very beginning, hey, I want to ride 50 miles. But you didn't jump on the bike and immediately ride 50 miles. Maybe you could have, with pure willpower and grit, done that. But the blowback would have been not worth the squeeze of the juice, if you get my drift. However, if you put a plan in place and you say, okay, I'm going to start out, my plan is this. My wife has done this when she ran her last half marathon. She prints out a 12-week schedule and she's like, today I have to run 2, tomorrow I have to run 4, this weekend I have to run 6, then it's back down to 2. And she's got it all charted out. And she's saying, what would a half marathoner do? Well, they would do this practice in order to get to this point before the race. Guys, it's no different in every area of expertise that we're working on, but we have to be meaningfully specific, okay? I know Edwin talks about this on the Mindset of a Champion all the time. Most people are a wandering generality. Think about that. Most people are a wandering generality. They're sitting around waiting for life to happen to them. And they're just saying, oh, that's it. That's predetermined, that's my destiny. And again, whatever you believe, that's fine. But if you're meaningfully specific, you can actually direct the course of your experience here, guys. That's what's so powerful. If you're meaningfully specific and you say, I want to work on this, I want to work on that, I want to focus on this, I want to focus on that, and you do it based on your why and your priorities, you're going to get the exact result of what you're focused on. And I think that's why mindset and mind frame and all of these things are so critical, because a lot of people, we get, myself included, guys, we get into this pity party of victimization, like it's us, why not, all these things, and we don't become meaningfully specific in what we're working on. We don't take the bull by the horns, if you will, and we don't start controlling what happens in our life. And I'm going to be the first to say you can't control everything, right? I said it last week, show the big guy your plan and he's going to laugh in your face. But if you point the compass in the direction you want to go, that's the big thing. We all understand there's a million ways to get from New York to LA, right? There's the scenic route, the direct route. You could walk it, you could crawl it, you could climb it, you could fly it. There's a bunch of different paths. The key is, are you pursuing a path, or are you just sitting there at the destination, getting ready to start your journey? The reality is we want to get on the journey. We want to put it into practice. We want to be meaningfully specific. And that's what all of this planning is about. This is why Guy and I have come on each and every Monday for the last year, not for our own self-benefit. This is what we do as part of our practice every day, but just to shine a light on this as a path to get from where you are to where you want to go. There might be other paths out there. The goal is to find one and to stick with it. The other piece about practice, and I know if Guy was here, he would be talking about James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and it's about this habitual pattern of practice that we have going on and making incremental improvement on that. It's what and where do I get started and how do I stay on track, guys? And I truly believe the biggest trap for most people is getting started. Right? And one of the things I had read, and I don't know if it was in James Clear's book or maybe the 12-week yearbook, but you want to ask yourself this question. When I'm going to put something into practice, I'm going to adopt a new habit, okay? I want to do it in a way where I am 1,000%, I hate to use percentages over 100 here, where I'm 100% confident that I will put that into practice. So if I'm asking myself, and I have not been doing my running, that I want to start running, and I want to run a 10K, which is a little over 6 miles, how confident am I on a scale of 0 to 10 that I can get up tomorrow morning and put in 6 miles? My confidence level, if you're asking me right now, and I'm being truthful and honest to you guys, it's about a 3 out of 10. I'm already envisioning myself hitting snooze on the alarm clock. I'm already envisioning myself making it maybe the first mile and then saying, what, 5 more of these to go? No way. So what we need to do is look at what our expected result is of what we're working on that action and activity alone, and make sure our confidence level is at minimum a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And if you're saying anything 8 or less, here's what you need to do to overcome the obstacles so that you can put activities into action. You want to break it down even further until you are a 9 out of 10. So what I would do in that exercise of wanting to run the 10K is I would sit here and go, well, I'm a 3 out of 10 about 6 miles tomorrow. But you know what? I'm actually an 8 out of 10 that I could do 2 miles tomorrow. I'm a 10 out of 10 that I could go out and I could walk a mile. Now, which one seems more realistic to actually taking place? Because the reality is it just has to happen. If it doesn't happen, it never did, and you don't get the benefit from it. But if it does and you suffer through it and you succeed, you get the benefit, right? It's like riding that bike. Maybe you didn't feel great after the 20 miles, but then when everything settles down and you reflect back on it, you're sitting there going, man, I'm so thankful I put in that 20-miler today. Like, I feel amazing, and it's the reflection on that after when you get to the destination. So if I said, look, I'm a 10 out of 10 confidence level that I can walk a mile tomorrow. And then I'm going to ask myself this question again as I come back and reflect and plan each day. I've got my compass pointed down that path, and I might say, okay, you know what? I've been walking about a mile every day. I've got a choice to make. I could maybe jog that mile. I could maybe walk 2 miles, right? There's variety to get from point A to point B, but I'm always focused on that incremental improvement. So again, if you found yourself struggling to implement something, ask yourself if you've been making that task too big and your confidence level is too small. And then break it down to where you feel 10 out of 10 is the ideal goal. I'm 100% confident I can do this today. Guys, you should all be 100% confident that you can meet a new person today, right? Some of you might meet a handful of people today, but everybody should have the confidence that they can do that today, or that they can follow up with one person today. If the daily activity seems too much, make it, I have to follow up with one person this week. The key is you got to get going down the path, because inevitably what I know is if you start following up with one person a week, it turns into one person a day, it turns into 2 people a day. And all of a sudden, a year from now, and it's hard to look forward, guys. A year from now, you could be looking back and saying, oh my God, I'm so thankful a year ago I started calling one person a day, because now I'm calling 30 people a day, or whatever your ideal goal was and where you want to get to. Because nobody who you're looking at who is where you want to be started there. Think about that. Again, we have to change our perspective. Think about that. And I think that's the trap that a lot of people get in when they look at leaders, and that leaders get in when they forget where they came from, is they all had to start somewhere, and it typically wasn't at 100 miles an hour, full speed, exactly what they're doing today, right? They had to learn the material. They had to practice their speech. They had to practice their pitch or their presentation or overcoming objections or all of those things. They had to get over themselves, their fear of success, their fear of failure, or all of the other fears, and they had to just implement. And then they had to stick with it. And the last piece on this before we open this up for roundtable discussion is part of practice is repetitions. And all too often we put something into action. I've become victim of this many times in my life. I put something into action. I fail to put in enough repetitions to make it a subconscious habit. And when something changes in my life or some chaos goes off, that new thing that I've implemented goes by the wayside as I revert back to the old status quo. And here's the thing. We want to be cognizant and we want to be aware of that, so that we don't succumb to that trap in certain areas that we're focused on. And if we do, we have to remind ourselves that tomorrow is a new day. Remember what I said last week? You don't have to be perfect all of the time. That's a big trap, right? Okay, I'm not going to start until the first of the year, and I'm going to work out every single day for a whole year, and Wednesday happens and I missed my workout. I failed. I'll wait till next year because I'm not perfect. No. You have to accomplish about 60% of what you're setting out to do to still be successful. So think of the range that you have. That's a 40% swing from perfect to 60%. And as long as you're operating somewhere within that wedge, you're going to get to where you're going. It might take you a little bit longer, but consistency will pay off, and it all becomes part of repetition. And so again, when we come back to sprint planning as the topic and sort of what do you practice, that's what we're talking about. If I prioritize my time to put into practice certain areas that focus on the spokes of my wheel of life to be successful, and I'm consistent, relentlessly consistent, as Edwin would say, in my practice and pursuit of those items, it's an inevitability that the outcome will happen. That's what Zig Ziglar says. You know, you have to plan to win, you have to prepare to win, and only if you do those things can you expect to win. And there's an expectation that happens where it's like, I've come into this action, this event, this moment in time, already prepared to be successful at it. So the success becomes an inevitability. And each of you have that power within you to implement in anything that you're focused on right now. You just have to realize that and then put it into practice. Again, you know, I truly believe, and we're going to wind down this live. I'm going to turn this live off. But I truly believe if Brenda, who, you know, we're going to talk to here in a second for those who join the live conversation, stays consistent with her bike riding, she might come to us a year from now and say, hey, guys, I did my first century ride or half century ride, and it was amazing. And although I'm not pushing the limits every day, I'm staying consistent so that I have some base, and this has been the benefit of that. All of that's a reality of just putting in practice and starting there. So again, guys, the big question for this week is, what do you practice? What do you put into practice? Because so many people like the idea of something, the theory of something, right? We all own the yoga mat per se, but we don't get on the mat and do the routine. And so we can't call ourselves a yogi if we don't practice it every day. We might look it, we might like it, we might think the idea of it is great, but if you don't practice